It's Friday, it's 6 o'clock, it's time for the Football Insomniac, and as you can see this week, I'm not joined by my regular co-host in Callum McFadden. 1 week in, he's already taken a holiday. But instead, I've brought in some good friends of mine all the way from Aberdeen. They are the hosts of the Red Tinted Glasses podcast. We have Callum Wright and Glenn Schroeder. Guys, thanks very much for joining me this Friday evening.
Thanks for having us on, Colin. It's very much appreciated. I suppose we should return the favour for your appearances.
It's about time I got you on. I've made some sporadic appearances up there, and it's normally not been good for Aberdeen when I've turned up. But then that could be said for the rest of the season. Glenn, you're telling us just before you came on air, you had a bit of a cosmetic issue this afternoon. You hitting the golf course on a Friday, half days?
Yeah, I've got every second Friday afternoon off, but I think I found the only part of Aberdeen that had a bit of sunshine today instead of hail and snow. Callum, probably you had the hail and snow, but yeah, I decided not to go out with a hat or sunscreen, and as a ginger, that's a very dangerous game, so I've subsequently got sunburnt.
Well, at least I can't really see it, so
no,
you might get away with that one tonight.
Yeah.
But we will be discussing the current social media boycott taking place by teams across the UK, not just in football but across most sports. We'll also be discussing the potential takeover of Arsenal by the Spotify founder Daniel Ek, or as Callum said before he came on air, Daniel from EK. We'll also be discussing the Champions League fallout from the last couple of games and look ahead to the fixtures coming up this weekend, where we'll be joined by a Celtic State of Mind's Laura Bradburn to give our predictions in the Super 7. But first, gents, let us start with the social media boycott. Now, for a bit of background, as of 3 p.m. today, teams from Scotland and England, as well as the women's game, the FAs of all the countries, a lot of media channels, even things like Sky Sports, BT, journalists all across the country, flicked off their social media for 4 whole days. So they don't come back on until Tuesday morning at midnight, I believe it is. And even managed to get the support of UEFA in something like this, which for a movement is really impressive. Some massive matches taking place this weekend, and you will be able to catch them on the club's official websites, but you won't hear about them on social media, although I'm sure some fans will still want to get involved. Callum, considering the instance that's taken place this season, something really needed to be done to highlight that enough was enough. Is this the gesture that needed to take place? Is this something that will spark the conversation, that will spark a bit of action in the game?
I think so. I hope so. I think it's a good start, and I think it does send a message, not just the fact that it's only players doing it, but also the fact there's sort of the media getting involved in clubs as well, as you say, especially with big games going on this weekend. People maybe will sit up and take notice a little bit more with that being the case, and I certainly hope that's going to be the case as well.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at it, what impact does this really have on the clubs, the fact that they're not posting on social media this weekend? I mean, is it affecting the clubs' say, or is it really a thing to the fans to tell them basically enough is enough?
I think so, more towards the fans. It might make people sit up and sort of take notice how much of a serious issue it really is, the fact absolutely everyone's getting involved. I think we've seen sort of groups of players doing it periodically in the past, but now the fact they're all getting involved, the media as well, as I say, with big games, maybe, hopefully, people will set up and take notice of it.
Glenn, I mean, as Callum said, that's what it's been set up for. It's been set up to make awareness of the struggles that's going on in the game so far. We see it almost on a weekly basis now, where footballers play a game of football. What they're being paid to do, it's literally their jobs, and they come off and you see this horrendous, either it's homophobic, it's either racist, it's misogynistic. There's so many different types of abuse that's going on, and all of it has to be stamped out. But the question I have on this whole scenario is, where is the sort of pressure on to enforce the change? Is it within the football associations? Should they be setting it out that they're trying to maybe ban these people from coming to the games? But then this is all done online. Is it within the hands of the social media companies, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter? Is it really coming down to these people, or is it within the government that maybe they have to bring in some laws to stop this from happening? Who are we trying to force the hand of here right now?
It's interesting, actually. I never really kind of considered the viewpoint that we're maybe forcing the hand of football clubs. I really think that social media platforms need to take a bit better responsibility. You hear a lot of the sports personalities saying it's so easy now for anybody to set up a profile and hide behind a picture and type whatever they want on a keyboard, and there to be no consequence because the account is just blocked, deleted, and then you can just go up and set a new one. So there needs to be, I think, though, collective action from the social media platforms, but the clubs as well, because what consequence if your social media is being blocked, but you can still go and attend the games? What sort of supporter are you of that club if you are sending abuse? We all get emotional watching the game, but like you said, they're just doing their job. How would you feel if you were sitting at your desk and someone's verbally abusing you, all kind of things, just because you typed something wrong on an email? It's hard to put into context, but I'm a Formula One fan as well, and I thought Lewis Hamilton, who's been doing a lot for this movement as well, his comments were quite interesting when he said, this change, it won't happen overnight, but the fact that so many people are now taking this stand this weekend, it shows that there is a lot of people fed up with what is going on, and they're going to try and be that force for change.
Yeah, I'm just going to bring up this point. Producer Paul's working in the background, and he's talking to Pat Nevin earlier, who says that he spoke out in 1984 when his Chelsea teammate Paul Cannavale received racial abuse. 40 years on, and this is still a massive issue in society and within the game of football. That's the case. I mean, football would love to say that it's left the dark ages behind, but this season, more than others, has shown that this is still coming to the forefront. Now, Callum, is a lot of that coming from the fact that usually you hear this within a football ground? Now, we're not saying that's correct that you hear it within the football ground, but if you go to games, you hear this abuse left, right, and centre, and a lot of the times you're reluctant to act because you don't want to cause an issue, you don't want to cause a scene. But then it's on social media, it's out there, it's got your name put against it. And is that because they aren't in the grounds? Is this the stuff that we're actually hearing across the country?
I suppose in a sense it could be, but when it's on social media as well, they find it's so easy for them to just go type whatever they want, send it, and then get on with their day, whatever. And it's just behind an account. It could not even have their name linked to it, not even their profile picture linked to it as well. That's a problem. I suppose in the ground, like, someone might sort of take action up against it, whereas in social media, it's so easy to hide behind anything. It could be anyone. You can pretend to be other people and do these kind of things.
Yeah, I suppose, like, if you're in the ground, your ticket is linked to your seat. It's easier to identify, as you say, Callum. It's one of those things. But probably folk are reluctant to take action in the ground. And I think, like, probably we've seen as well, like, with fans not going into the game to get that abuse out. Obviously, I'm not saying that this sort of abuse is correct in a ground, but people aren't being able to vent in their normal way. So we're taking to social media to vent. And that's, I think, why we're seeing more of it now. Definitely.
And Glenn, I mentioned earlier, who's the sort of pressure on to enforce change? Callum made a great point there. It's so easy to sign up for a social media profile. There'll be a lot of people that have now done it that didn't previously have it before the pandemic because they socialise quite frequently. They used to go to the pub. Now they can't, so they've made up a Facebook account, a Twitter account to catch up with their friends. And you see that the numbers have grown upwards year upon year upon year. But it's so simple. We could all go on and create an account right now for someone that is totally not us. We could completely catfish the internet and put pictures up that we can take from Google, and nobody knows who's exactly behind that account. You see it so frequently throughout Twitter, and it tends to be these accounts that attack the players. And that should surely come into the question that when you sign up for these accounts, there has to be a responsibility on the company to know that when Colin Watt signs up for Colin Watt's Twitter account, he is Colin Watt and he's not Martin Smith from 3 towns away.
I've seen people say that, it should be linked to your bank account or it should be linked to your passport, but not everyone has a passport. But is it technically workable linking it to somebody's bank account? Because your bank account is quite easily to be frauded, and what happens if someone then takes that and it's goes down the line of maybe identity fraud, but it's the same as what you're saying there about catfishing, because you could take someone else's photo and pretend to be them. There's got to be, I think, certainly more focus, and hopefully this boycott that we're going to see this weekend puts the pressure on the social media platforms to maybe change. But as you touched on at the start of the show there, will it actually take government to pass law to see any change? Because there's been talk from social media, but never really any sufficient action, I feel.
And Callum, on the eve of this boycott, we see Albion Rovers midfielder David Cox, who received some, well, we have to say alleged at this point, horrific abuse about his mental health in the game last night between Stenhousemuir and Albion Rovers, to the point where he basically left the ground at half-time and decided to hang up his boots. Now, you see that reaction from him. We saw the reaction from Glenn Kamara earlier in the season. When you see a reaction like that, you have to believe that something's went on. Whether it's what they've alleged has happened or it's kind of a lost in translation sort of thing, it's definitely something that's happened that's really, really upset them. Now, we're talking about this being on social media. This is happening all throughout the country, and examples like that last night just show that the game's still got a long way to go.
100%, and you mentioned it earlier. People mentioned that football's no longer in the dark age, but then things like that go and happen. Of course, we have to say it is alleged that this happened, but I do stand with sort of David Cox. I'm sure you guys do too. That's just sort of things totally unacceptable in any way, shape, or form. And I think more has to be done, because as he sort of said in his live, it'll be his word against the alleged abuser. And what can they prove there? And then it'll probably just be a slap on the wrist, a suspension, maybe a fine, if that, and it'll be back to playing football.
It's a horrendous thing to think that someone is receiving that sort of level of abuse that they decide halfway through a game that they're hanging up their boots. That's someone's livelihood gone in the matter of perhaps a few seconds, a passing word, a passing gesture. What people need to realise is those passing gestures, those passing words is exactly what's also happening on social media. How long does it take you to type out 15, 20 words of a tweet and send it? And then it's later on that you think of the consequences. So, I mean, my advice to anybody is just think before you say something. It's easy to say it and it's difficult to execute it, but really think what you're going to say. Think of what the consequences is to not just yourself, but to the other person of what you're going to say. Glenn, this is going to wrap up on Tuesday morning, basically at a minute past midnight. Will we see things like this continue throughout next season, like we did see when football restarted last April and footballers decided to take the knee? Is this something that we could see going forward, or is this a sort of a one and done scenario? Because I think it will get to the point where a lot of teams now are not taking the knee because action hasn't taken place. They're doing something else. Is this something that we could see the boycott going down if we continue to repeat it, or should this be enough for these platforms to take action?
I know it's interesting because, yeah, like you said, some teams have stopped doing the knee. They're taking a stand instead. We saw that from an Aberdeen point of view at the weekend with Dundee United. They took a stand as Aberdeen took the knee, but I don't think this will be a one-off. So many people rely on social media to get their information, and not seeing their clubs tweet their favourite players, post on Instagram, and give their feedback maybe 24, 48 hours after. That's going to be a strange feeling for many out there, and it will have an impact. So I think we will see this again. I don't think it'll be a weekly occurrence. But if it has that powerful effect, I think it will, and we don't see any action from the social media platforms, there's absolutely no question. I think this will be an occurrence again next season.
I think it's one that everyone will pay very close attention to over the weekend, especially when it comes to the fact that, as you said, there's a massive fixture card this weekend. You've got the Glasgow Derby, you've got the big game down south between Manchester United and Liverpool. There's massive games going on, and the one I actually do feel sorry for is on Monday. It is the finals of the non-league day. And BT Sport, to be fair to them, have put this on free-to-air television to encourage people to get involved in non-league football. But then that advertising's pretty much gone with the fact that there'll be nobody tweeting about it. So I think there'll be ups and downs to it, but overall the message should be very strong, and we'll hope to see some change coming from that. So a big welcome to everyone who's watching us today on YouTube, on Twitter and on Facebook. It is the Football Insomniac. I'm Colin Watt, and I'm joined this week by Callum Wright and Glenn Schroeder from Red Tinted Glasses. And we're going to discuss now one of the main topics that you see on the screen, and it is the potential takeover of Arsenal by Spotify owner Daniel Ek, or Daniel Ek, as Callum likes to call him. So just to give a bit of a background on who Daniel Ek is, he's 38 years old and co-founded Spotify back in 2006, aged only 23. Imagine being able to found something as big as that at the age of 23. That'd be incredible. Apparently he didn't even need to do it. He'd already earned enough money that he could retire. I don't like people like that. If you've earned enough, just leave it. He's currently the CEO, and he has a net worth of 4.7 billion. Now, he's been an Arsenal fan by looking at his social media for basically all his life. He speaks about growing up watching Arsenal, and he has the backing of Thierry Henry, Dennis Bergkamp and Patrick Vieira for this takeover. Now, Glenn, only last week Arsenal were involved in what is now the failed European Super League. When we discussed that, we spoke about how it was all a thing about money talking and getting more money into the club. Does this suggest that Stan Kroenke's time at Arsenal will be coming to an end now, and this is his get-out clause?
I mean, he could use it as a get-out clause. Whether or not he will sell up or not remains to be seen, but it's probably going to provide the catalyst for many fans, who are already angered at the way Kroenke treated their club in terms of the Super League. So to have a fan who's worth a lot of money coming in and promising to invest this money will win support from some elements of the Arsenal fan base. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of be an interesting story to see how it plays out, because you're just replacing one billionaire with another.
It's an interesting way of looking at it, to be honest. I mean, I think in this day and age, when you look at a club like Arsenal, to kind of fund it through even a scenario like this that we're living in right now, I think you do have to have very deep pockets, and there's no argument that Daniel Ek definitely has deep pockets. But Callum, looking at, as I mentioned earlier, we looked at his social media and you can see that he clearly is an Arsenal fan, and he's getting the backing of 3 all-time Arsenal legends. As Glenn was saying, there is pressure on Kroenke to sell up because people believe that, or fans believe that he's not got the club's best interest at heart. Do you think the fact that he is an Arsenal fan and he's got the backing of these big players, that will put more pressure on Kroenke to eventually sell up?
100%. That'll first of all endear him to the Arsenal fans no end, those 3 big names backing him. And we saw Arsenal's protests, the Arsenal fans' protests down at the Emirates. He's got to go, blood, I believe what some of them are saying. I think the pressure will only increase the longer it goes on. I don't think they've been happy with Kroenke's ownership for a while, and this was sort of final nail in the coffin. And you look at some of the other clubs as well involved, that's sort of the case. Then I think the pressure will only increase as time goes on, and perhaps as well if more big names come out and back him.
What kind of big names do you think would need to come out the woodwork? I mean, how much deeper can you go? Are you looking for an Ian Wright? Are we looking for a David Seaman? Someone along them lines?
Hey, I like Ian Wright. I think he's a very likeable man. Maybe he can get people on board.
But, I mean, Glenn, we look at it, we're talking about Arsenal being a former member of the European Super League, which it'll be a pub question for years to come.
Yeah.
But when you look at it, so everyone was saying at the time, why are Arsenal involved in this? They're a team that had never won the Champions League. They look to be finishing in the sort of mid-table area of the Premier League this season. When you look at that squad, there is some really good players, but I think we can all agree that they need some serious investment to get back up to the levels that they think they should be at. I mean, Daniel Ek's clearly not scared of a challenge, but do you think he would have the investment to perhaps dig deep into his pockets to get Arsenal back into the top 4?
But when I was doing kind of my notes for this show, I kind of felt that the Kroenkes have invested. You look at Kieran Tierney, Aubameyang, Lacazette, Nicola Pepe. They've spent on the players, but the players aren't performing. It's all well and good having an owner that can buy you the players that you want, but ultimately they need to perform on the pitch. Now, whether or not that's what the Arsenal fans want, someone that can put the money into the team to get these players, that's fine. But if they don't do the job on the pitch, does it really matter? And I think it's interesting what Callum's saying there about he'll be endeared to the Arsenal fans, but as Aberdeen fans, Dave Cormack's come in as our chairman, and he's an Aberdeen fan. I actually think being a chairman of the club you support will actually put more pressure on him.
I mean, it's an interesting way to look at it, but I think when you mentioned that, like, Dave Cormack's obviously got the connections to Scotland before. As much as he's the sort of American businessman, he's got the connections to Scotland. Daniel Ek almost comes in as one of the Premier League era fans. One of these fans that as soon as Sky took over the Premier League and started distributing the rights worldwide, all these fans from different countries started picking up Arsenal as their team. Now, I might be completely wrong, but that's the way looking at it is how it comes across. So I don't know if there's as much of a sort of Gunner till I die attitude within him, which probably takes the stress of that off him. But, I mean, you can't deny that the Cronkies have, along with the other businessmen who when looking up, I couldn't pronounce their names. It's crazy. But you look at it, they've moved from Highbury to the Emirates, which is by all accounts a fantastic stadium. I think it's the only stadium in the world that has the only stadium in the UK, that has full unrestricted view no matter where you sit. And I think every seat's padded, which
looks like it on TV.
Pretty nice. That'll help on a cold winter's afternoon. But the thing about Daniel Ek is he made his money really on the Spotify thing. The Spotify came in as this rival to Napster at the time. And then he eventually got involved in the BitTorrent and uTorrent side of things, which I'm sure everybody over a certain age will remember downloading a song off, look at Callum, look, he's showing how young he is, off LimeWire and Kazaa, downloading it, opening it up, and it was completely something different from what you thought you'd downloaded, and your computer was infected for months. But Spotify is probably almost an essential for a lot of people nowadays. Like, you speak to everyone, you both have Spotify accounts?
Yeah.
Spotify user, yeah.
That's how we promote our podcast is using Spotify. Exactly,
and it's got that ability where you don't even have to pay for it. You can get a free account, or you can sign up to a membership. Now, when we were speaking about this off air, I asked the boys to come up with some Spotify elements that Daniel Ek could bring to Arsenal, so that when he takes over, he can bring in his $9.99 a month subscription service to Arsenal. So I'm going to throw it to you. I'm going to go with the first one, right? Because I hope I steal one of your ideas. And anyone who's a regular Spotify user will know of the playlist system. And on the playlist system, you've got Throwback Thursdays. So that we're going to introduce Throwback Thursdays at Arsenal, and its Legends game is at the Emirates. Get that on the season ticket. Who wants to go next?
Great suggestion.
Yeah, I'd enjoy that. That would be great.
I really feel I'm not going to trump that either. No pressure.
One of them I've gone with is instead of playing shuffle, so you shuffle your music, but instead every time you press shuffle, you shuffle Aubameyang's haircut because he likes to mix it up. That's my one. See how that goes.
Go on, Glenn, what have you got?
I feel really under pressure now. Mine was going to be based on the subscription that on Spotify. I know you can have, like you said, a paid account that skips the adverts. So you could link it to the season ticket holder that you could pay to get like premium access, maybe to I don't know what they've got in terms of hospitality areas down at the Emirates, but maybe for a game, maybe in the cup against lesser opposition, promote for premium access.
I like this one coming in from Daniel Mack, and I'm just going to bring this up. I think they'll want a discount if they go out in the Europa. I mean, I guess that's on buying the club, but I'd also think that might be something for fans. It's like, don't leave, we've dropped out the Champions League. Here's a 6-month offer to get you back. Just exactly what it's like when you do try and give up your Spotify account.
Yeah,
I'd also like sort of towards the end of the season, you get Spotify Wrapped at the end of the year.
Yeah.
I'd like Arsenal wrapped, so it goes through like month by month. It's like in December you saw Kieran Tierney get injured twice, but in January you discovered Mark Target on loan from Aston Villa, something like that. I think that I could get behind that as well.
That is brilliant. Oh, no, I don't think I can top that, Glenn.
No, neither can I. Callum's
well
clearly
done,
put a
Callum.
lot of effort into that.
Well done, Callum. You have won the Spotify Arsenal game.
I thought about that one more than anything else, in all honesty, Colin.
And how long did that keep you up all night?
More than I'd care to admit, in all honesty. I'll just leave it at that.
But I mean, obviously, he's going to take a further interest in Arsenal. We'll look to see if he will take over the club and what he will introduce, whether it be Throwback Thursdays, Arsenal Wrapped, or even Shuffle Aubameyang's here. I just wonder if he might eventually bring in one of those ones where when you go to log out your account, it might be just a case of if the season's gone so badly, you can hand your season ticket back and by goes the manager. They've been very quick to move their managers down at Arsenal, and I don't think Arteta's got much left in his managerial reign down there, especially after last night's performance in the Europa League. And that's a very nice segue to talk about the European performances. Arsenal falling to Villarreal last night. Villarreal, who have had a bit of a hit and miss season in La Liga, but certainly look as if they're on course to make it through to the Europa League final, where I think they'll be joined by Manchester United after that storming second half comeback. Yeah. Callum, I think a lot of United fans were really surprised at how they managed to pull back from 2-1 down last night, but did that really come down to the fact that Roma had basically had to use their sub-allocation by, was it the 37th minute or something like that?
Something like that. I don't think that helped. I was quite disappointed when Man United came flying back. So I'd already used up my joke for European Super League, more like European Pooper League, and I should have gone with it for Arsenal. Very disappointed by that one.
Glenn, Arsenal have always been this team that kind of, when you compare it to always the bridesmaid, never the bride, they showed again last night that when it comes to the big games, sometimes the bottle just seems to go.
Yeah, I was really surprised in that game because I thought it'd be close. I know 2-1, it probably looks close. It looks close, but the first half, Villarreal kind of were the better team. Arsenal couldn't defend to save their lives. We saw that at both goals, but Arsenal have got themselves back into the tie with that vital away goal. How crucial that will be, we'll see next week. But I was reading a stat today that I think Villarreal have only lost one of their last 15 two-legged ties, and the last time they did was actually against English opposition in Liverpool. But that's a phenomenal stat to have, and obviously taking a lead, they can take comfort in that. But for Arsenal, like we've obviously just been discussing there about how important the Champions League could be to them next season, that's a hugely disappointing result, and they've now put themselves under a lot of pressure for next week. They've already got players that they're easing back in from injury. Aubameyang came on as a substitute last night. Tierney didn't feature. Lacazette obviously has his hamstring injury. So, they've got a tough game at Newcastle at the weekend, and then they'll have the second leg. So big game coming up for them.
Yeah, and Callum, when you look at it, it's a team that Arsenal have put together, and it's in the hundreds and hundreds of millions. And you compare it to the team that Villarreal put out last night. On paper, this should have been a pretty one-sided tie, but it just shows you that going with Arsenal's season, they've never been able to live up to the hype, have they?
No, and sometimes Premier League as a whole, I whenever there is a big result like that in Europe and a Premier League result gets sort of embarrassed like that, I am very, very happy. And even more happy the fact it's Villarreal who came over for Darren Mackey's testimonial up to Audrey, so I'm all aboard that. But yeah, it just shows you can spend as much money as you like. If they're not performing on the pitch, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
But I guess in that sense, you weren't happy at Manchester United coming back with 5 goals in the second half, 2-1 down at half time. I mean, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer does some half-time team talk, doesn't he?
Yeah, I don't know what he says in there, but I'd really love to know. I'd love to be a fly on that wall. Some comeback from them, and you've got to think that, well, there's no way Roma are coming back from that.
I mean, for me, it reminds me of the film Space Jam. With Michael Jordan and the Looney Tunes, and they've got Michael's magic juice. It must have been Ollie's magic juice that he gets given at half time. Turns out it's only water, but don't tell Paul Pogba that.
But even like for Man United as well, the so-called semi-final hoodoo, that they must have surely had some sense of that in the back of their minds at half time, thinking, "Oh, here we go again." That 10-minute spell just blew not only Rome out of the water, but probably the tie.
I mean, it would have to be the collapse of all collapses for Manchester United not to go through to the final. But we're going to speak about this in terms of both of the tournaments, the Champions League and the Europa League. Will we see 2 all-English finals? I'll throw it to Glenn first.
I think in the Champions League we will. I was surprised at how well Chelsea did against Real Madrid. Thomas Tuchel's kind of made them a lot more defensively sound. But the way they dominated the game, that was kind of what took me. But obviously, kind of screamer from Benzema getting Madrid back into the game. But even look at Man City as well. I know PSG totally lost their heads in the later stages of that game, but that's a big result for them as well. So certainly in the Champions League, I think we'll see an all-English final. It's not going to be an exciting final if it is, in my opinion. The Europa League's been a competition that's always thrown up surprises, and Callum's right. It's maybe a bit of an underestimation in Villarreal and folk overestimating what Arsenal will do. I think Man United, it's probably safe to say that they're there. I think Villarreal will do the job next week, and it won't be an all-English final in the Europa League.
Callum, do you agree with that?
As much as I would like to, I hope so that Villarreal do get there. The away goal for Arsenal is huge, obviously back on their own patch with 2-1 deficit to overturn. In terms of Champions League, though, I would say definitely on the cards for an English final. It'll be interesting to see how that pans out, see how much PSG come flying back at Man City. Should mention, if Real Madrid do get there, I'd kick myself I came on here and didn't mention it. I hope they do win. It's just so that Aberdeen don't lose their record of being the last team to beat them in a European final.
When you look at it, I mean, I'll be surprised if Real don't go out there next week and have a real good goal at Chelsea. I think Chelsea spurned so many chances in that game. Timo Werner, I don't know, he blows so hot and cold, it's ridiculous. And PSG, as you said, they just completely lost their head. But Cal, when you look at it, it's been almost 13 years since the last all-English final when Man United beat Chelsea in penalties. And it's kind of come to that stage where English football has often been seen as one team will make it, one team will make it. Now we're sitting in the fact where 4 teams could be playing in the 2 finals. Is this the resurgence of the game down south, or is it just showing that this is maybe where the money's been at this season?
I think it's probably where the money's been at this season. It does pain me to see so many English teams getting towards the finals there. But I suppose when you've seen sort of how poor Barcelona have been in recent times, and then I suppose Real Madrid as well, it's sort of bound to happen this season. I suppose where the money's been, as you said. The Europa League's maybe a bit more of a surprise. 2 teams getting to the final there. But then I suppose you also look, Bayern Munich knocked out in the Champions League too, a team that have performed well in the Champions League in recent times. But I don't like it. I don't like it one bit, to be honest.
It also helps when your teams get placed into the group stages automatically, and that helps as well.
I mean, the thing that annoys me about the Europa League, I think the Europa League is a fantastic competition. One, it's got a fantastic anthem. I will not hear anybody slander that anthem. That is outstanding. And 2, because a lot of the English teams don't give it a chance, then you've always got a good game against them. I mean, how many times have we seen 17, 18-year-olds been thrown on for Manchester United or Arsenal? And even at the stage last night where I was looking at that Arsenal team and going, there's probably 2 or 3 players that could jump out and you could bring stronger players into that side, and that's in a semi-final. Glenn, what can you do to the Europa League? I mean, this introduction to the Conference League comes in this season where I'm pretty sure Aberdeen will be playing in that. No offence, but I don't think the top 3 is going to be achievable. And then less said about the Scottish Cup at the weekend, the better. But will the introduction to the Conference League give the Europa League a bit of a boost in terms of its notoriety, or is it just always going to be seen as like the baby brother of the Champions League, and it's good to be there, but you don't really want to be there?
Yeah, I don't know, because I think, yeah, it's interesting that point you make. It's good to be there, but you don't really want to be there. And I suppose adding the reward of if you win the tournament, you get into the Champions League. They've obviously tried to entice the clubs that maybe don't view it as lucrative, trying to make it more so. But I think the Conference League, like you said, Aberdeen will be in it next season, barring a collapse. I think that's going to lessen the Conference League, because the Europa League for teams like Aberdeen had that, I don't know if glory is the right word, but certainly an attraction, because the opportunity to get to the group stage and play some of these bigger names that obviously haven't made it in the Champions League was there. So to then go and throw in a third competition, and I think you're devaluing the Europa League, which is already, for me, a very underrated competition.
Now, Callum, we're just about to enter May. It's the last day of April as we are live today, which means it is coming into final season. We've seen the first leg of the semi-finals. I'm going to come to both of you, but you first, Callum. Who are your winners of both the Champions League and the Europa League?
Right. I'll think with my head rather than my heart. In terms of the Europa League, I think Man United are going to win it. I think they're going to go all the way. I suppose Villarreal may throw a surprise if they get there. They might surprise Man United like they surprised Arsenal, but I'm going to go Man United for that. In terms of the Champions League, I think it's finally Man City's time, to be honest. And I'd quite like to see Kevin De Bruyne lift it, to be honest. Just Kevin De Bruyne, that's the only person I'd be happy for, just because he's such a player.
Glenn,
I'll agree with Callum. I think it's Man United's to lose now in the Europa League. I'd like to see City win the Champions League, but I'm going to say Chelsea are going to do it.
Ooh. What makes you feel that Chelsea would win if it was, for example, an all-English final?
Just the FA Cup semi-final. I know Man City played a weaker side, but that's a huge psychological boost for Chelsea going into that game. And you look at how well Thomas Tuchel, like I said already, set them up defensively. I think if you can just frustrate Man City or PSG if they get there, obviously Chelsea as well, you just hit the team on the counter, and they'll just try and win it 1-0.
I'm going to bring up some of the comments that's coming in. Some of the previous topics we talked about. True Say comes in saying, if the Gunners continue to fund, and I read this wrong at first, I thought it was KSI they were mentioning, because KSI is a big Arsenal fan. If they continue to fund KSE, which is Kroenke Sport Entertainment, self-sustaining model, then Kroenke won't sell. Daz S coming in saying, Kroenke will love this, it's pushing the price of Arsenal up. But this is an interesting point, and it's been made by True Say and by Daniel Mack, and they're talking about Emery's Europa League knockout record. Now, I think he's had so many finals without winning one. I don't know how many it's been in total. Xhaka's got the curse of the Champions League, but David Luiz always seems to pick up a trophy, so could it be Arsenal's year? Now, I'm going to make my predictions, and I'm going to agree with you both on Manchester United. I think Man United will win the Europa League. I think Solskjaer just seems to manage to pull out these performances. They could be 4-0 down in the final and still come back and win it 5-4. I'm going to go with Real Madrid for the final. I think they'll come back in the second leg against Chelsea. I think Thomas Tuchel's done a fantastic job there, but when you look at the experience that's in that Real Madrid side of winning the Champions League, I just think that might eventually come through. Now Daniel Mack brings up another good point here, and he says the Conference League could be good for Scotland, and the team that qualifies will have extra funds to complete in the league. Now, I've not actually seen the finances of what that will entail, but in terms of European football next season, I think if you finish fourth, which Aberdeen are scheduled to do so, then you have one qualifying round, and then is it straight into the group stage?
No, it's not anymore. Because of the cup, we'll be into the second round, so we'll have 3 qualifiers to play.
So more embarrassment on the
cards. I'm glad I actually researched that before, because I thought we were going into the playoff finishing fourth. But no, if it's the same. So whoever wins the cup will go into a playoff round, just having the one game in the Europa League, therefore guaranteeing group stage. But if Hibs do not win the Scottish Cup, both ourselves and Hibernian will enter in the second qualifying round of the Conference League, therefore needing to win 3 ties to get group stage football.
And the winner of the Scottish Cup this season gets into the playoff round of the Europa League. That's
Correct.
right, isn't it?
And obviously then losing that gets automatic European football till Christmas.
It's incredible. So win the Scottish Cup and you've got football in Europe until Christmas. That's basically the way it looks, which is it's brilliant for Scottish football, I would say. And on the Scottish football chat, the pyramid system is back. It's back. We're going to see a team being relegated potentially out of League Two in Scotland this year. Now, Brecon City, who were confined to that relegation spot last night with a 1-0 defeat, will play the winners of either Brora Rangers or Kelty Hearts. Now, Glenn, Brecon had previously threatened legal action against the SPFL, saying it would be basically wholly wrong for them to be relegated, considering the season that's went on. That was surely just a desperate move. I mean, Brecon's now finished bottom 2 years in a row. It's about time that we brought this system back into play.
Yeah, absolutely. I noticed Cowdenbeath also piped up with that sporting integrity chat as well in regards to the pyramid playoffs. But it's deserved for Kelty Hearts, it's deserved for Brora. And at the end of the day, even though, and I'm friends with some of the Fraserburgh team who were obviously a bit disappointed to see Brora declared as Highland League champions after only 3 games, but it's going to be the exact same playoff as last season. And we all know that those two teams were unfairly denied the opportunity to have their playoff last season, given that league reconstruction didn't occur and the way the season panned out. So I think it's only right that these teams have that opportunity. And when you look in both the Lowland League and the Highland League, you have teams built to progress into the league football. Look at Cove Rangers, narrowly missing out on the League One title this season, secured their playoff spot most likely. Edinburgh City, again, running Queen's Park close. They came up from the Lowland League. So these teams aren't mugs that are coming up. We even look at Brora this season in the Scottish Cup beating Hearts. Give them their chance.
I feel like you've stole all my notes here, Glenn. That is literally everything that I was going to say. So thanks for joining us this week, and that's us all wrapped up. No.
You're a new host for next week.
Mate, next time we go on holiday. Honestly. But yeah, so when you look at it, Kelty Hearts, heavily backed, coached by Barry Ferguson. You look at some of the teams, some of the players that's in that team, I'll get a lot of stick for saying this from all my friends in Greenock that support Morton, but Michael Tidser in there as the captain, Callum Higginbottom, Tam Scobie, players that have played at a much higher level, dropping down to that league, showing that the investment's in there and the wages are there for that as well. Brora are also quite heavily backed for the Highland League, and as you said, they only played 3 games but were declared champions because they were champions from the season before as well, so that was the agreement up there. But Callum, when you look at that tie, and as Glenn's quite rightly said, Cove Rangers, Edinburgh City showing that you can come up to through the pyramid system and you can do really well. Cove could potentially be in the championship next season, depending on how the playoffs go. Kelty versus Brora. How does this go? Will one of these teams come up, or will Brecon save themselves for a 3rd season in a row?
You see, the problem with Brecon, though, they'll have no confidence. They must be so low right now, so low. I'd rather Kelty Hearts or Brora Rangers come up into the leagues just for a nice little change. And let's be honest, 2 years in a row finish bottom. Brecon don't deserve to be here. Let's be honest, it's true. What I think will be interesting is what league they go into, because they're kind of in the middle of nowhere
Highland
between
League.
the 2 leagues. Will they go Highland?
What about the Highland League, guys? It's got to be, surely.
That's I think the other contentious issue why they threatened legal action, because they will be forced into the Highland League, despite most of their players being based Central Belt, and they don't know how that's going to force attraction, because I'm sure a midweek trip to Wick isn't really appealing for most of the Aberdeen-based players, let alone travelling from the Central Belt.
I mean, it's got to be done, hasn't it?
If you finish it, you've got to take the consequences.
Well, I think that's what East Stirlingshire came out and said, basically, that they were the first team that suffered from this, and basically it's a case of you made your bed, so lie in it. So I would like to see it come back in. I know there was talk of reconstruction because of it, but I mean, it's just a bit of a fairy tale. It was almost something out of the Ann Budge playbook to suggest that there would be league reconstruction. Callum, will we see one of these 2 teams come up, and if we do, who will it be?
I think, and rather annoyingly,
Pressure.
I'd like to see Brora come up.
Yeah, so do I.
Just more northern teams, the better, in my opinion. But I think my head says Kelty Hearts promotion, unfortunately.
Glenn, do you agree?
No, I'm going with Brora. I think, I mean, you've listed some of the players that Kelty have got, a lot of experience in that team, but Brora have got a lot of fight and desire in that team. They don't know when they're beaten. Even, I know obviously the next round of the Scottish Cup didn't go to plan against Stranraer, but I do think though whoever wins that tie will get into League Two. But I'm going to go with Brora. I'll go different to Callum.
Do you think that the fact that Brora have only managed to play 3 games this season, will that have a big effect?
I don't know, because I know that they were playing friendlies against other Highland League teams that had been allowed to train as a result of their Scottish Cup involvement. I know it's slightly different to competitive action, but at the end of the day, it's probably the adrenaline and you know what the reward is. And I don't see it having an overall impact, because Kelty haven't trained or played competitively for equally as long.
And you look at it as well, Callum, as Glenn mentioned earlier, Brora knocking out Hearts, a team that's now going to be playing in the Premiership next season, albeit one of the weirdest trophy celebrations I think I've ever seen. But it does show that there is talent coming through from the pyramid system, and the fact that we're getting back to this is only good for Scottish football.
Yeah, 100% agree. That's what it's there for. It's also nice, just a nice little change up, and I thought it was brilliant when Cove came into the league, and the fact they could be in the Championship next season is quite mental for another little team in Aberdeen to be up there. That would be interesting. Imagine if we got them in the Cup. I think I would quite enjoy that. But no, I think it's great to see. It's what pyramid systems put in place for. These teams deserve their chances to get into the leagues, get promoted, and ultimately, if you're Team 42, you might deserve to go down if you don't win in the playoffs. So
I have to agree with you there. And we were about to discuss the 2 trophies in Scotland which still have no sponsor for next season after the announcement of the Premier Sports Cup. So anyone that's watching, tell us who you would have as your sponsor for the League Cup and the Scottish Cup. I've went with Tennent's for the Scottish Cup. You've got to get back to the old Tennent's Scottish Cup. That was my memories of growing up. And for the league, who knows? Would it be Tunnocks? Could it be even something like Black Rooster? Who knows? But get it in there. But we're just about to be joined by a Celtic State of Mind's Laura Bradburn as we look ahead to this weekend's games and give our predictions. So welcome to the show, Laura Bradburn.
Hello, nice to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for joining us, Laura. Looking at last week's Super 7, it was myself, Callum McFadden and Russell Boyce, and I finished with a big fat 0 out of 7. So I'm not looking forward to this week's predictions. Topping the table was the bus driver himself, Russell Boyce, with 3 points, and Callum had 2. So 3 correct results for Russell and 2 for Callum. First game we're going to look at this week is Livingston versus Aberdeen. It's a tussle in the top 6. Stephen Glass recently just taken over as Aberdeen manager. The boys have got a lot of opinions here, but I'm going to throw it out with the first prediction. I'm predicting a 3-1 win for Aberdeen. Laura, as a lady, you can go. I want you to go next before the boys are ready to champ in.
You're throwing me under the bus here, making me predict an Aberdeen result in front of 2 Aberdeen supporters. I'll prelude what I'm about to say with the fact that I am a huge Ian Jess fan. He was a big hero of mine growing up, even though he wasn't a Celtic player. I did always think if we'd got him, that might have stopped Rangers 9 a bit quicker. But we'll move on to Aberdeen anyway. I know they haven't had the start that they wanted under Stephen Glass. There's been a bit of to and fro about whether it's worked out the way it should have been, but you know, I think they are certainly showing a bit better form than Livingston, and so my sort of predicted result for that's 2-0 Aberdeen, especially with it being a home fixture as well. So
a team State of Mind have went for an Aberdeen victory. Red tinted glasses. You're back in the home team. Tell me they're picking up the 3 points.
I'm going 0-0. So I've seen enough of Aberdeen this season, and I know Glenn's got a little stat coming up for you as well, and it'll back me up. I think I've got a home run there. 0-0.
Yeah,
Go
to
on,
be
Glenn.
fair, Callum, I was very close to predicting the same because, as I said to Colin before we went live on the show tonight, Aberdeen are currently on course for their worst ever goal scoring season. We need 3 goals, which Colin is surprisingly hopeful we'll get this weekend, to just equal our worst ever return. And we need, I think it's 12 to match the 99-2000 season under Evie Skovdahl, which we know didn't really go to plan in terms of just avoiding the playoff. I've, however, said we'll scrape this and win 1-0 because we need just the 1 point to secure European football. 3 points potentially with results elsewhere could keep the race for third alive. So yeah, I'm going to say we'll sneak this 1-0.
So Callum's going to be embarrassed to show his face back on red tinted glasses after predicting that Aberdeen wouldn't win at the weekend. Three Aberdeen victories on this side and a draw from the Aberdeen fan. We'll see how that one goes. Next up, we've got Motherwell versus Kilmarnock, 2 teams that are really in form as coming into this game. I'm going to go with a 1-each draw, although I just bigged the 2 of them up. I think they'll probably cancel each other out. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Kyle Lafferty on the score sheet. Who wants to take that one?
Let's go same order.
Yeah.
Go on then.
Oh, dearie me. I mean, I don't know. I kind of thought that interestingly both teams seem to have been scoring quite a few goals recently, and so I thought a wee upset. At first I was like, yeah, Motherwell are on really good form. I can't see past them, but I don't know. I just thought Kilmarnock look as if they might have enough to sneak a wee victory. So I've gone 2-1 Kilmarnock. It is away from home, but I think they can do it.
Now, Glenn, Callum, I asked you to send you my your scores to me. So you haven't seen each other's scores.
No.
After 3, tell us what the score's going to be. 1, 2, 3.
2-0 Motherwell.
We're just so in sync.
Yeah.
So who's going to give the reason behind it? Callum, you go first.
I think just Motherwell's form. To be honest, I think they'll edge it. I suppose Kilmarnock got more to play for, but I just think Motherwell are going to edge it. That's simple as. Glenn?
Mine was down to the fact that, Colin, you mentioned Kyle Lafferty getting involved, but after their cup defeat, I wasn't sure if Kyle Lafferty was going to be fit, and obviously we saw Nicky Kabamba go off with an injury. So mine was based on Killy's lack of strike options for this weekend if they're ruled out for injury. So that's why I've gone for a home win.
So we've got 7 minutes left to cover the last 5 games before the Clyde boys came on, and I'm sure they'll have a lot to discuss after the game against East Fife was called off with 5 minutes to go. And I definitely want to hear what they've got to say. So we'll move on to this game that's happening in Glasgow. It's nothing much happening. It's Rangers Celtic. I've gone with 1 each.
Yeah, I was on the bulletin earlier on today and kind of went between Tony and Jim's predictions. I think Jim said 0-0 and Tony said 2-0 Celtic, so I've went middle of the road 2-1. I think it's a bit optimistic. I think given the way we've played this season, it's probably hope rather than expectation, but you know, if we're not hoping our team's going to win, then what's the point?
I mean, I totally wrote St Johnstone off last week. I wrote them off. I said Rangers would win 3 or 4-0. And look what happened. So maybe I should change my prediction, but who knows? Now, we're going to do it again. On 3, tell us your score. 1, 2, 3.
1-1. There you go.
They are in sync, Laura. That is scary.
That's weird. You know, that would be a novelty on Celtic State of Mind if everybody agreed. It never happens.
So we've got 3-1-1s and Laura thinks a narrow Celtic victory. Moving down south, it's the big game between Everton and Aston Villa. It's a push for the European spots. Aston Villa's had a fantastic season. Everton started really well, but starting to tail off. Again, I'm sitting on the fence quite a lot this week, but I've gone for a high scorer this time. I'm going for 2 each.
Oh, see, I looked at the form table and I'm anticipating a snooze fest. I've gone 0-0.
Oof.
So,
Callum?
Basically, no reasoning behind this. I've just got 3-1 Everton. There we are.
I've gone for 2-1 Everton just because I think the home advantage will pay off, and Carlo Ancelotti tends to get results in important games. So that's my only reasoning.
I think when you look at it, Villa this season have been really impressive considering they were sitting towards the bottom last year. They're up there pushing for a European spot. Jack Grealish has done really, really well for them this year, and he's probably a shoe-in for the England squad. So now Jack Grealish, he's got a connection to Scotland somewhere, doesn't he? He could have played for Scotland at some point.
Never knew
I
that.
think so. I can't remember exactly what it is, but yeah, it rings a bell.
Imagine him playing for us at the Euros, him and John McGinn in midfield. That would have been impressive.
David Turnbull can't get a game, so I'm sure they wouldn't have picked Jack Grealish either.
That's a good point, to be fair. Another big game that's coming up down south is between Newcastle and Everton, potentially a mid-table clash here. And I'm going to throw it out there. I think after the exploits of Arsenal through the week, Arsenal are pretty vulnerable here, and I'm going for a 2-1 Newcastle victory.
Yeah, Newcastle have had a wee turn up in form recently. I'm going bold. I think it'll be a slightly less high scoring. I think I'm going to go 1-0 Newcastle, and I think it could signal the end of Arteta's reign.
Ooh, bold one, Callum.
I've gone for another score draw for my Newcastle United, my beloved Newcastle United, 2-2. That's what I've gone for.
I mean, that's both Newcastle and Aberdeen. You're not hoping for positive results at the weekend.
Oh no, that is a positive. I'd say those are positive results for Aberdeen and Newcastle at this stage.
I went 1-0 Newcastle, just not to offend Callum, but yeah, I think I'm kind of in agreement with Laura. I think it's going to be a big result for Newcastle and could be disastrous for Arsenal.
Another big game, and although it's not a derby, it's probably one of the biggest games in English football. It's Manchester United Liverpool, two teams that are on sort of different ends of the form table, I would say. When you look at it down south, it's always one of these games that's hyped up to be the big Super Sunday, and it comes to nothing. I'm going one each.
I went along the lines of a draw as well, but slightly more optimistic about what we might get out of it goals wise, and gone 2 each.
I thought you were going to turn around and say 0-0 there.
I've gone for a buoyant Manchester United to get a 2-1 win over Liverpool.
I'm with you, Colin. 1-1, but I wouldn't be surprised at a 0-0 because these games tend to be a snooze fest.
Yeah, it's one of these big games that they big up. It's Super Sunday. It's Manchester United Liverpool. They put 3 hours of build up on, and it's just a horrible game of football. But yet we still all tune in, so more fool us. And moving into the continent, it's a big game that could determine the Ligue 1 title race. It's Monaco versus Lyon. Now, going into this game, Monaco are missing quite a few players due to a COVID outbreak. And for that reason alone, I've gone for Lyon to win 2-1.
I didn't know about this COVID outbreak. I did no research. I looked at the form table, I looked at the results, and I went 3-0 Monaco. So that's not going to come to fruition.
Yep, I didn't know either. I looked at their head-to-head in the recent games, and I thought 3-2 Monaco. Why not?
I did the exact same method of madness as Laura and went 3-1 Monaco.
Well, do you know what? I mean, it could come back that we'll look at these results next week and I've just been the complete idiot that went the other way around. But that is the Insomniac Super 7. So just looking over it, we've got most of the team have went for Aberdeen to beat Livingston. We've gone pretty much for a Motherwell win. We've gone with a draw in the Glasgow Derby, a draw in the game against Everton and Aston Villa. Most of us have fancied Newcastle to get something against Arsenal. Pretty much a draw in the big game down south between Manchester United and Liverpool. And, well, the rest of you have went for Monaco, but let's hope that my inside knowledge has maybe came through and Lyon will get the 3 points. But look, it's been great having you all on the Football Insomniac. We're just going to wrap up now as the Clyde boys are just about to start. Laura, thank you very much for joining us on the Insomniac Super 7. It's been great to have you on. And if you haven't checked out the AXOM Lunchtime Bulletin, go and do so. And I believe you're back for coverage at the weekend.
I should be, yep. Can't wait.
And gents, it's been great having you in as cover for Callum this week. You keep this up and maybe it could become a full-time gig. I'll just not tell Callum and that'll ruin his holiday.
Thanks for having us on, Colin.
And check the guys out at Red Tinted Glasses on YouTube, on Spotify, and on all your podcasting platforms. We'll be back next Friday for the Football Insomniac. Until then, everyone, stay safe and take care.